Hello, everyone. Today's topic is popular. It's back pain. Okay, it's a well-known problem. And my guest today, Gabriel Rutten, MD from Holland. Say hello, Gabriel.
Hello, everybody.
Okay, Gabriel and I. This is now late 2021. We have co-authored a book. Gabriel's written most of it, but it's got both our names on it. Um, Called Official EFT from A to Z. B stands for back pain, among other things. So back pain is going to be our focus today, right?
Yes, let's do that.
All right. Now we talked a little bit. By the way, the English version, I mean, the Dutch version is going to be available in late 2021. The English version should be available. The English translation should be available sometime in early 2022. Now, to get to back pain, Gabriel and I were talking just a bit before we started recording all of this. There's an interesting phenomenon goes on, and this may be quite useful for those of you who have back pain or those of you who are therapists helping others. And that is, this is very strange, but our radiologists, our doctors who specialize in X-rays and MRIs and things like that, can look at the back, take a picture of the inner workings of the back, and they can look at it and they can say, look, here's a problem. This is out of alignment there, and this is too squashed down, and that's too big, and all that other stuff. And they can say, this person should have a big time back pain. Other times they'll look at it and say, this person, perfect. No back pain here. But Gabrielle, that's not really the truth, is it?
No, indeed not. So there's absolutely no relationship between findings on an X-ray or MRI and whether you have problems or not. Interesting.
Yeah,
huh?
that seems so strange because, well, an MRI costs a lot of money, for example, okay? And so here's this big, huge piece of equipment that take this X-ray and see all this stuff. And we've got doctors that have all this training. They can tell you mechanically what's wrong with your back, and yet some of those people, many of them, have no back pain whatsoever. Before you talk, I just want to mention one of our mutual friends, Sherry Baker, who appears with me a lot. She's one of our directors and so on. According to MRI, she has a miserable back. She should be in pain, walking with a cane, and all of this. No problem at all. Perfect flexibility and all of that. So, Gabrielle, how do we explain that?
Well, I'd like to just use this as evidence again that it is mind over matter, in the sense that, yes, your body has certain characteristics, you can find stuff in your body, but these types of imagery doesn't help you really to find out what's wrong. And so, I'm presuming the people that watch these videos are interested in using EFT to look for problems. And we say with EFT, look for emotional causes because they will show up in your body. And I think this is a very good example that the emotional cause shows up in your body, and how your back looks on an X-ray isn't very interesting at all.
Yeah, but on the other hand, the doctor can say, well, yeah, but your L5-S1 disc is really too small and you should be having sciatica and all kinds of problems.
Yeah, so having been a doctor, because you always say I'm MD, but I am formally MD, we should, probably say, or in Holland, I need to say I'm an MD not practicing. Anyways, long story short, I think what people don't realize is that there's many more people that have all kinds of stuff that would show up on an X-ray, but there's never an X-ray done, so you never find out. And so what I believe is that doctors tend to overestimate what they find either in in lab tests or imagery, that would be the explanation of what is wrong or why, or it should be the cause of, pain or other problems in the body. Because, the test is not complete, so to speak. If you were to prove that whatever you see on an X-ray is the cause of the problem, you would need to test everybody, and then see what happens. And so they tend to overestimate their findings.
All right.
Is one
So,
part of the deal.
all right. So we're finding that the X-ray, the MRI, not all that accurate. It may be useful here and there, or something to point to some stuff, perhaps. So what does cause back pain, and what's the solution? Magic question.
Good question. Good question. So here's the thing. If you look at your body, there's some, bigger groups that sort of react to certain types of emotional issues. Back, bone, muscle, and tendon, but also the other bones in your body, the other tendons, tend to react to self-worth issues, a low self-esteem. I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable. I'm worthless.
Something's wrong with me. I'm defective.
Something's wrong with me. So those types of emotional issues tend to show up in your body. You're fearful. You're afraid you're not good enough. You have fears of not being good enough. In that sense, you're not strong, because you do react to anything anybody says. Any rejection, you're, big problem. Any criticism, big problem. Somebody says something, big problem. You'll feel fear, other negative emotions, and so you're not strong enough to sort of relaxed and peacefully accept that you are who you are and what you are, and it's all good. There's nothing wrong with you ever. Sure, you make mistakes. Some things don't look good, fine. But you, in essence, you're perfect.
Even though you can't run as fast as somebody else, or you're not as big and tall or strong as somebody else, you're not as rich as somebody else, you're not as well connected as somebody else.
Those are all just, circumstances. That's not really important. Your essence, that what makes you is perfect. You were created perfect. You'll leave this realm in a, you're always perfect. So if you're not strong enough to be good enough to be part of this society, if you look at animals, that sort of explains it a little easier. If you're part of the herd, but you are not fast enough, not big enough, or there's something you can't do, but the others can do, you'll have fear, in a sense, because you're not good enough. You can't be a good member of the herd. And so this is what, if you look at the biological reaction the body does, it makes you temporarily a little weaker when this I'm not good enough stress is going on, so that you're forced to slow down and solve whatever you're not good at. Because at the end, after the body starts healing again, bones, muscles, and tendons will be a lot stronger than they were before. So,
would it be fair to say, I'm sorry, that these things can regenerate?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, let me just, I want to interject something here, if I may. In other videos I've said this, but I want to say it here. I was told in the 1970s, because I was having sciatica, that my L5S1 disc, if it should have been a 10 in size, it was now a 7. It would someday be a 3 or a 2. I would beg for an operation. I was told that. And I bought it. I bought the white coat. He was a friend of mine, orthopedic surgeon, and so on. Okay. Time went on. I had my spiritual experience, which was indicated in my own book, The Unseen Therapist. Okay. I began doing other emotional work, the personal peace procedure, and so on. But I never once aimed at that L5S1 disc. I was told it would never regenerate. I bought it. Okay. So I bother to regenerate it. But gradually, my back issues started to fade. I began jogging again. You know, uh, at the time in the 70s, I was in my 30s. I'm now 81. I have no back pain whatsoever. I had my back, my L5S1 disc, X-rayed how long ago? 6 years ago, maybe something like that. And it was an 8 or 9. It had actually regenerated.
Yes.
So I only interject that because we are told, I think, by the medical profession or conventional means, maybe I'll be broader than that you cannot regenerate these things. But I see evidence otherwise. So comment on that, and then let's go on.
Yes, yes, yes. No, because that's complete nonsense. Your body continually breaks down cells and builds up cells, even nerve tissue. And when I was still in medical school, which I wasn't in the 70s because I was still a teenager back then, but soon after I was in medical school, they also taught me that, and others obviously, that all kinds of tissues do not regenerate, but they do. There's a constant regeneration of your body. In actual fact, in about 7 years, every single cell in your body has been replaced by a new one.
Mm-hmm.
So regeneration is certainly in order. However, you need to solve your emotional underlying issues. Now, I'm assuming that you resolved, maybe unconsciously, some of your underlying issues.
Gabrielle, let me I changed a lot of them. When I was having my back pain, I was this hard driving businessman. You've got to be successful. You've got to conquer the world. You've got to have 3 houses and whatever it is, and all of this, and I was getting stomach problems and everything else as a result. And once I had my spiritual experience and began aiming at my specific events and other things, not necessarily aiming at my back, but just my general, I need
Yes.
more peace in my system. The stomach problems went away, the back problems went away, physical things start to fade. And that's what we're talking about here, I think. So please go ahead.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you were very lucky to discover all this, in the sense what is important in life, what isn't.
Yeah.
And you've done your fair share of EFT and you're still doing it. So I'm pretty sure you have your emotional issues pretty much under control. Correct?
Yeah. Well, we all have more work to do, myself included.
course.
Yes. Okay.
Of course. Of course.
But that leads us back into the idea that it isn't what the X-ray shows. It's our emotional, personal peace within that has much more to do with our back pain
Yes.
than
Yes.
we give it credit for. So please,
Yeah.
more.
So back pain often comes from the muscles or the tendons, but it can also come from the bone and the little membrane around the bone. So I just want to point out that osteoporosis, bone tissue loss, is also the same issue. The same issue. And here's the thing that we need to understand in order to know what do I want to tackle if I want to tackle these kinds of problems. Usually, when you are in stress and the emotional situations are actively happening, usually you don't have many problems, pains, or anything. You start noticing once your body starts to regenerate, because then lots of stuff happen, and that's when these muscles and tendons tend to be very painful. Not bone itself, you don't feel anything in your bone, but the membrane around it is very painful. So here's the trick. If you have a back pain, you are already resolving some of the emotional stuff. But in order for the back pain to both go away and stay away, you need to look at your emotional problems. So here's the trick. Make a timeline. Indicate when did this back pain start, and look for emotional problems just before the back pain started. So this is essential, and this takes a little getting used to, but you need to look for the emotional self-worth issues before the back pain started. That's when they were ongoing. The moment you feel the pains, you are already healing. Your body is healing. And somehow you have resolved your emotional issue. Not completely, because if you have chronic back pain or it recurs, it means you have similar problems and you haven't resolved them completely. But so look for the emotional issues that were ongoing in your life before the pain really started. So that's a little trick as a pointer.
Yeah, to me, there's two little pieces to that. One is, yes, if we can zero in on, oh, gee, my parents got divorced, when I was 12 and I never got over it, kind of thing. That's when my back pain first started. Okay, that's a big clue. And yes, I've seen many cases where we zero in on whatever emotional issue was occurring at or about that time. But there's also another contributor I've found over time. Sometimes just getting back to self-worth. You've been rejected from day one sometimes by some parents or fathers, mothers, siblings, and rejected, traumatized, and all this kind of stuff. And it's been a whole buildup of lots of things. And we may have this one thing right about that time, but both can be contributors. So
yes.
if you go to that one item right then, you may get a lot of really good results, but it may not be complete.
Yes.
Because there's still more personal piece to be done because of other stuff.
Exactly.
And that's all addressable with our specific events, but please go ahead.
Yes, so you need an approach that does more than just one thing. So identifying the early childhood stuff where you really felt rejected and not good enough and all that, I'm not lovable. All those situations are definitely should be on a list, and you should work on them with your personal peace procedure. Also, start with triggers, more present day triggers, because if you have had recent periods, episodes of back aches, this whole pattern is still active. So the other approach would be to identify more recent triggers from today or yesterday. So now we're looking at identifying your worst moment of the day, particularly those moments in which you feel rejected, in which you feel not good enough, I'm not lovable, etc. So focus on identifying the moments where you feel your negative core belief is activated. I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable. When you work with your personal peace procedure on them, and when the intensity of all the emotions, and you can feel fear, you can feel anger, you can feel sad, you can feel all kinds of stuff, but you need to identify these types of specific moments. When the intensity of the negative emotions goes down from maximum to around 5, if 0 is nothing and 10 is maximum, around 5 you can ask yourself, when did I feel like this before? Which allows you to identify more specific events, because what you want to do is clean house on the whole stress pattern, and it's the foundational stuff is in your early years and could be you as a babe, a toddler. And most often, because your negative core belief starts in the very early days, you'll need to work on the specific moments where you felt rejected, not good enough, where people were criticizing you and all that. So the foundational stuff is found in the early days. And then later on, because school and first friends and, trainings and first jobs and all that are, those are very important periods in your life where, again, teachers and friends and classmates and all that can be involved in very specific moments where you feel completely not good enough, completely rejected and all that. And so you need to clean house until you're, in the present day. And because today your I'm not good enough stress pattern will show up in something that happens today.
Yeah.
So
And the whole idea
The whole
about
idea about
not being
not being
good enough
good
is,
enough is,
to one degree
to
or
one degree
another,
or another,
our culture
our culture
gives
gives
that to
gives
it.
that to it.
Television, etc.,
Television,
always
etc.,
achieve,
always
be better,
achieve, be better, and
and all of that
Yes.
stuff.
all of that stuff.
Okay. Now,
Yes.
one of the things I was thinking, I was trying to put myself in the shoes of the audience members here. We're
Yeah.
talking about things which is really a very different approach to what they're thinking about, the x-rays and the MRIs and things about the back pain and so on. And it might even seem, oh, that's too much. I could never do that. But that's not really so. This is a this is a different kind of skill. And it takes a little while, yes, to think differently and so. But our course, my book is free. The Unseen Therapist is free. Gives you all the basics right there. Okay, and you can go on to advanced stuff if you want. But it's the kind of thing anybody can learn. And once you've gone through these different thinking doors, you don't think the same way anymore. And what might seem daunting to you now becomes, why didn't I think of that before? Seems so
Yeah.
obvious. Once you've done the personal peace procedure a handful of times, you got it. It's a rather simple
Yes.
little process. And so I just want to make that point. Please continue. Go.
Absolutely, yes, definitely. So don't get discouraged because it sounds as if you need to do thousands of specific moments. But if you work with the unseen therapist, you tend to, it tends to be quite easy to find the right things, especially if you realize I need to look specifically for all these moments where I feel rejected or not good enough. That sort of pinpoints you to, if you want to resolve the back pain, that is, because there's probably more stuff. But if you go along and follow the ebook and the course, it's very doable. So if I may, I would like to add one more thing to how you can approach this,
Sure.
which is we call this your negative core belief, which means that's the big negative conclusion that we all have. Quite often it's I'm not good enough, but it could be I'm bad, or I'm not lovable, or I'm worthless, or I shouldn't be here, or I don't count. So it's this little short, very negative conclusion you have about yourself, and you'll recognize it, because that pops up a lot of times. And so a good way to see whether you're making progress, obviously your back pain will ease off and stay away. The other one would be to measure how true this statement feels. The way to do it is to close your eyes and very mindfully say, I'm not good enough, as an example, and then feel and assess how true does this feel emotionally. So not rationally, but emotionally. And again, score this between 0 and 10. 0 being not true at all, 10 being very true. And you'll notice, if you start working on these issues, the daily triggers and the foundational stuff, you'll notice that if you measure this negative core belief every once in a while, you'll notice that it'll be less and less true. It will feel less and less true. And then you're on your way.
Along those lines of that measuring, I do that with some frequency. But I tend to do it before we ever do any unseen therapist stuff. We get a 0 to 10, and usually it's a 9 or a 10 or something. Usually, I mean, it's up there. Okay, and so then we'll do it, and then quite often at the end of it, because we just finished a very specifically oriented, focused unseen therapist session at a specific event, they'll say, "Well, I'm not good enough." Well, that's a 0 or a 1. I don't think much about it. Well, I don't always believe that yet, because we're too close to the session itself. So we want to look at it tomorrow morning and the next day. And chances are it's going to show up. It may not be the 9 or 10, hopefully. It might be a 6, a 4, an 8, 7, or something
Yes.
like some other number. And that's pointing out, there's more to do. And you'd be taught in our courses, how to figure out what that is. Often it's just right there in front of you once you're used to it. And so you do some more, you clean house, to use your term on that. So once through it, maybe you'll kick the center out of it. I would expect you would improve it. More to do, most likely.
Yes. Well, I think, realistic expectations are always good. So You can't work for an hour and expect your your backache that you've had for 20 years to disappear completely. Sometimes it happens if you like really kick the center out of it, but usually you do need to make a little more, do a little more work. And your negative core belief and how true that feels tends to fluctuate a bit because there's other stuff that sort of activates that whole negative conclusion. But if you, and I'm a big fan of daily work, do it, 15 minutes, 30 minutes a day, the way it's described in the ebook and the way you can even dive deeper when you do the course. If you chip away at this type of emotional baggage, you will get results.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Anything more you want to add, Gabrielle?
No, I think this pretty much covers back pain.
Well, okay. We're going to have a series of these things and other topics at another time. But until then, tune in, everybody. We'll see you later. Okay.